In 2022, CrowdStrike CEO and dedicated motor racing enthusiast George Kurtz fulfilled his lifelong ambition to drive a modern Formula One car.
That's like nothing I've ever driven before.
Now Kurtz will take on the world's most iconic Formula One track and compare himself to the best of the best to see if he has what it takes to be a competitive F1 driver. But this time, he's going one step further, taking on both the W12 and the legendary and priceless W04.
I think you always have a fear when you're driving a Formula One car, particularly if it doesn't belong to you, and that is something bad's going to happen. That was just about flat.
You tried, and then you lifted in turn 2.
I'm just turning and hanging on. I don't think people really have a great appreciation for how complex it is to drive that car and what skill and focus it takes.
Does Kurtz have the mental strength and driving ability to triumph, or will his latest goal and a priceless piece of motorsport history be destroyed? Driving Ambition 2, testing the limits.
Silverstone's an iconic track. It's been around forever, 70 years. It's been on the F1 calendar. Some fantastic corners, really fast corners, and a lot of those have never been changed. They're as they were decades ago. And also home of the British Grand Prix. It's a fantastic event, draws a great crowd. Just one of those classic circuits.
To just think about all the races that have been there, all the people who have been on that track before, all of the Formula One victories, sort of hallowed grounds for racing, and it's basically the home track of Mercedes. It was really special.
Today, George is going to be driving the international circuit, and essentially that's the start and the end of the Grand Prix track, but it's got some fantastic corners in there. So turn 1, 2, that's the same corner complex as the race drivers open that lap in qualifying, ultra fast, flat corners when you're on low fuel. You've also got the Hangar Straight, which is one of the most famous straights in motorsport. Stowe corner, again, really classic corner. It's sort of fast mid-speed corner, but a tricky one to get right, not a lot of runoff there. And then we've got the Vale Club chicane to finish the lap.
The international circuit was good because it was a shorter lap, and it allowed me to be able to go around more times and try to adjust myself to the turns and really get used to the track itself.
To get Kurtz familiar with the track, F1 driver George Russell is on hand to share his knowledge and coach Kurtz on the secrets of this legendary Grand Prix circuit.
We good? Yep. Excellent. Grab the door. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. What better coach than George Russell to tell you where to go around the track, where to brake, and where the commitment corners were.
So I'll drive as if it's the F1 car. Obviously, brake much earlier. And then use that. And then again, a nice lift. And we just roll the speed through the corner. If you want to use the curb, it's no problem. Not needed. Same here, if you want to, no problem.
You got to keep it tight here, right?
Yeah, your legs are out here and you'll be braking at this sort of angle. Kiss this curb, exit mid-track, round the left, kiss the curb, and then don't be too aggressive here. Get the car in nice and early. You can kiss that curb once again. Run it, a bit of a bump, not too bad.
So, on that, do you want to roll the speed, or do you want to slow it down and get on super early?
This last right you can roll the speed in. It's quite a long corner, it's dropping down a little bit so you can use the compression, but you can just sort of just roll the speed into the apex, and I think this is a track that will give you confidence. If you don't need to attack the corners, you can afford to get off the brake and roll the speed. This is the only corner where you're kind of braking quite deep into the corner, but even then you can afford to get off, roll the speed through. Once again, not too aggressive, roll the speed and pick up the power nice and early. And I think the earlier you pick up the power, the more confidence it will give you. It's when you start braking deeper, the power will be a bit on edge.
He was pointing out certain areas of the track and things that I should focus on, and areas of commitment and places to get on the throttle and some brake points. So that was really, really useful.
All the tyres have gone washing out there.
No tires left.
Yeah. I'll be around if you've got any questions, anything, just let me know, but you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
You'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Thanks, George.
Cheers.
Equipped with this insight, Kurtz has one last step to take before getting back in the Formula One car cockpit. Learning the track himself in the only road car on the planet capable of coming close to mimicking the experience of driving a Formula One car, the Mercedes-AMG One. A street-legal road car powered by a hybrid Formula One engine, and the vehicle that holds the production car lap record for the famous German Nürburgring Nordschleife circuit.
How did Mercedes pack a Formula One team into a car that you can actually drive on the roads?
It was hugely complex, and I think maybe at the beginning we even underestimated the task. And it was about cooling, noise development. At the beginning, you couldn't even sit in the car because it was so loud. And at the end, we made it work, but it has been a long journey.
One of the things with a Formula One car is there's so much preparation of fluids and just getting the car warmed up. How does it work here?
Yeah, same way. You can start it up, and then you need to wait a while until everything is warm, or you drive it actually electric. And then after a while, when the systems are warm, it just switches on, which is awesome.
So it looks great from the outside, looks amazing. How is it to drive?
The acceleration is really mind-blowing. You know, I've been driving a lot of race cars, but you're overwhelmed with this car at the beginning. There's so many functions that we actually see in the real Formula One car in terms of engine modes and scenarios on recovery. Yeah, it's just mind-blowing.
Well, we're excited to have it here. I can't thank you enough, and the team. When are we going to get to drive this?
I think we should try, no?
I think so.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
Driving Silverstone in the Mercedes-AMG One will give George an idea of what it will feel like in a real F1 car, as he can hit comparable straight-line speeds, up to 352 kilometers per hour.
P1's a fantastic car. Just to drive a street car, arguably, with an F1 engine is incredible. You think about the amount of technology and engineering that went into it. You can feel it. The brakes were amazing. The torque on the car and the engine, superb. Pretty exciting car, and can't wait to see it hit the streets.
As George Kurtz attends a team debrief on his performance in the Mercedes-AMG One, George Russell takes the Mercedes-AMG F1 W12 e-Performance out for its shakedown lap. This is the process to ensure that all components are working properly, identify any issues and make necessary adjustments, as well as setting a benchmark lap for Kurtz to compare against.
In terms of the difficulties of driving a Formula One car, well, there's a good reason that all the support series are designed to gradually increase the level of power, the level of downforce that the drivers have to deal with, the amount of grip that they've got. And as they go through their careers from being junior drivers, the few that finally make it to F1 will have done so in a series of 3, 4, even 5 different winged open wheel cars. Now, to go straight from a GT car to an F1 car is not only very difficult, it's also extremely unusual because practically no one gets to make that step in one leap.
With the car warmed up and a fastest lap of 48 seconds set, George Kurtz prepares to take to the track and experience the sheer power of the W12.
With an F1 car at maximum speed, cornering can be up to 4.5, even 5G. So that means your body will go from being 80 kilos to 400 kilos equivalent. You're feeling all that force through the side of the seat, and equally on braking, huge amount of load pulling your head forward, and just keeping your eyes up looking on the road is actually one of the most difficult things for drivers who are not used to that level of G-force.
When you look at the commitment it takes for some of these turns, upwards of 5Gs, you look at the braking performance, there's always some level of doubt in your mind of, okay, are you going to be able to get in around the track, or will you have an issue, will you have an off on the track? This is not just a sedan that you're driving around the track. This is literally one of the fastest cars in the world. The last thing you want to be is the guy who puts it into the wall.
F1 cars don't like being driven slowly, and one of the real problems there is you lose all the tyre temperature. The awkward thing is when you're trying to learn how to drive an F1 car, going slowly isn't really an option. You've actually got to commit to carrying speed in the corners, getting on the power to build that temperature, and only if you do that will you get anywhere close to the lap times that an F1 driver's doing.
If you actually are partial throttle for just a few seconds, you have the potential to actually blow up the engine. It's either on or off the throttle, which is intimidating by itself in trying to drive these cars. You really have to drive the car hard. It needs to be driven hard. The brakes, the tires, everything has to be in the operating window. It is unbelievable how late you can actually brake in this car. And the sensation on your body, 5Gs that you're able to do. You go right, you go left into farm, and it's just one of the most amazing feeling and sensations in that transition from the right to the left coming off of the front straight. I think in the first lap, I felt really good. I knew where I was going. I knew what I was doing. And then it was just understanding the grip level of the track. And it was a little bit moist out. Again, just making sure that I constantly just kind of worked up to where I felt comfortable.
On his first run, Kurtz set a fastest lap time of 51.1, incredibly just 3.1 seconds off George Russell's benchmark lap. But he knows that with the world-class insight of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team, he can improve on that.
In terms of main areas of focus, turn one is a big one, like you said.
What's the best way to go through there? It should take it, so just progressively get
Yeah, I think so. I think that is just a confidence thing. That will be the more laps you do, the more happy you will be building the speed and knowing that the car's going to do it for you. Right. I think the braking's great. I think we'll keep that exactly the same. Don't overthink it.
Right.
Just build up to it again as you did before. Okay. We can't ask much more. Just keep chipping away and see if we can put it all together in that one lap.
With the data assessed and the clock ticking, Kurtz must quickly absorb and apply the team's insight in his final push for a fastest lap.
The faster you go, the more downforce is created, the more grip you actually have. So it's counterintuitive. So there's a level of commitment that's necessary that sort of defies logic, that says you have to go faster to be able to make the turn.
Through turn 1, 2, really impressive. He doesn't actually lose any time at all. So still a very small lift, but keeping the speed in the car, the momentum, no loss there.
With his times improving lap by lap, Kurtz gives it all he's got in his final run around the circuit.
In this particular track layout, Abbey was the big commitment corner. It was all about how can I reduce that lift into Abbey. And when I first started, I was braking, then I started lifting, then the lifts were smaller. And by the end of the day, everyone was listening to see if I cracked that throttle as I went past them.
hear a lift?
I didn't. Was there?
On that one.
Nope. This is more fun than watching outside.
And they didn't hear a throttle crack, and they went nuts. They were so happy and proud. And I brought the car back in, and I popped out of the car, and I was so excited. And our one engineer said, come over here. And he showed me the data, and there was a little blip on the data where it wasn't entirely flat. And I said, well, my foot must have moved with the G-forces, so I'm calling it flat. But in the engineering world, there was a little bit of a blip just as my foot moved with the G-forces. So next time I get out there, I'm gonna make sure my foot doesn't move.
At the end of the first run, George Kurtz was about 3.2 seconds off George Russell, but by the end of the day, George Kurtz was 0.9 of a second off George, clearly improving all the way through. A bit more time behind the wheel, probably you could get that down to a few tenths.
To get within a few tenths of one of the world's best F1 drivers would be an amazing achievement and put George up there with motorsport's elite.
To be able to see that improvement over the day and to land within a second of a Formula One driver I'm incredibly proud.
What really impressed us was just the ultimate pace. To have got so close to a race driver at the end of the day was quite an achievement.
That car is so special. Anytime you get a chance to get in it, it's special to me, and I just relish every minute of it.
But the day isn't over for Kurtz just yet. Now he must face his biggest challenge of all. In a true test of adaptability, Kurtz readies himself to take on the formidable Mercedes-AMG W04, a car that last raced 10 years ago.
The W4 was a really key car for Mercedes, and it was the end of the V8 era, but importantly, a lot of the processes that we were putting in place there and a lot of the strengthening of the team that produced that car were the same processes and the same team that went on to produce 8 championship winning cars after that. So in terms of the growth of the team, it was certainly a really key car.
That particular era of car, W04, is where Lewis Hamilton got his first win. And it was really the beginnings of the start of the dynasty. They didn't win the championship in 2013, but it really was putting him on a path to the domination that we've seen with all of the constructor championships.
From an engineering perspective, the W4 and the W12 are very, very different cars. The 12's a bigger car, it's got more inertia. You get a lightweight car like the W4, and importantly, when all the wheels and the tires are lighter, they're closer to the center of gravity, that car is a bit more nimble. But then going against you is the fact that when it starts to get out of shape, it does it very, very quickly.
As with the W12, before George Kurtz drives the W4, George Russell takes the car out for its shakedown, and he sets a benchmark lap of 51.4.
It's one of the older spec cars that just sounds incredible. It's so visceral. So when I first heard the car go by, it just created goosebumps. I got goosebumps everywhere. The hair on my arms were standing up just to hear the shrill of this car as it just whistled by. Sounded incredible, right?
Off the chart. Sounded off the chart.
Last year, Kurtz went through intense training in order to get to grips with the W12. But without the help of a simulator, will he be able to handle the classic and irreplaceable W4?
The challenge with the W4 is we can't backwards translate our simulator to that era of car. So unfortunately for him, it was always going to be a bit of a voyage of discovery on that car.
I gotta say, I was pretty nervous driving the car. I wasn't able to test it, wasn't able to get on the simulator. And to think that the Formula One team and Toto Wolff said, here is a heritage car, we trust you, George, we're gonna let you drive it. That's a pretty tall order and something that I took really personally. And it was absolutely incredible. It's a completely different driving style than driving the W12. It's actually one of the cars that had a blown diffuser. And a blown diffuser actually creates more downforce, the more the exhaust gas goes over the diffuser. Doesn't have as much torque, it revs a lot higher, sounds a lot better. And one of the unique features of the car is you actually have to get on the throttle a bit early. You have to crack the throttle so that as you get through the turn, you can actually generate more downforce as the exhaust is being blown over the diffuser. It's just an engineering marvel. Just to be brought back to that era was mind-boggling. And I remember one of my first runs in the W04, I went into one of the turns going back on the hangar straight and locked up the front right, and just, I saw plumes of smoke come out. And you really got the power when you got into the upper RPMs, and really when that engine came alive and when it just wailed and screamed down the front straightaway. Absolutely amazing.
The W4, George didn't get down to quite as fast a lap time, but then there was less running in that car, but did a really good job. So first run, running around 5.8 seconds off the pace, but then by the final run, getting down to 2.7 seconds, and certainly more to come. So still finding lap time on that final run, and no doubt that would have been even quicker if he'd had more time in the car.
To get in a car that I wasn't familiar with, to go through the process and trim 3 seconds off, I think was a great accomplishment for that day.
In the world of F1 racing, this progress is truly remarkable, showcasing Kurtz's adaptability on 2 distinct machines and an unfamiliar track.
There's always room to improve, and there's always room to be better. And I think for me, that's the exciting part. It's me against the car. It's me against me. Like, how do I get better from lap to lap? And that's what I'm focused on, is always moving forward. And in racing, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And I think it's the same way in business. And that's the mindset that I took to this day.
As the day draws to a close, an exhausted yet elated George Kurtz bids farewell to the Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team.
Unbelievable. Thank you, guys. So good.
You improved. You did exactly what we discussed.
All good?
It's just a fascinating sport. Best drivers in the world, best cars in the world, best tracks in the world. And it's really driven by technology, and it's driven by continuous innovation and always trying to improve.
How great is that, man? Thank you. Unbelievable. Thank you, guys. Thanks to the whole team.
So fun, huh?
Yeah.
There's nothing better than this.
No.
CrowdStrike is the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. With CrowdStrike, you get AI-powered threat protection, industry-leading intelligence, and a team of experts to detect threats and prevent breaches before they happen. Sign up for our 15-day free trial and get protected in minutes. Visit CrowdStrike.com. CrowdStrike. We stop breaches.